Known in theaters as Rambo, the unstoppable soldier who faced wars, enemies, and even the impossible. But behind the headband, the explosions, and the epic battles, lies a man with a story even more remarkable than any film he has ever made. Actor born with a mark on his face that almost kept him off the screen, but which became his trademark. Today, you will discover the true journey of Sylvester Stallone, from a difficult beginning to the glory of Hollywood, and how he turned what seemed like a flaw into a symbol of strength and resilience. Opening and introduction. Have you ever wondered why Sylvester Stallone has a crooked mouth? This is one of the actor's most recognizable traits, something everyone notices right away. But behind this physical detail lies an incredible story, one that begins at the very moment of his birth and almost changed the destiny of one of the greatest names in cinema. Sylvester Gardencio Stallone was born on July 6, 1946 in New York City. His mother, Jacqueline, faced complications during labor. Doctors had to use a tool called forceps to assist at the delivery. But during the procedure, something went wrong. The forceps accidentally pressed and damaged nerves on the left side of the baby's face. This injury caused partial paralysis that permanently affected his mouth and tongue, creating the asymmetry we all recognize today. It also directly influenced his speech, giving him a slower, distinctive tone. As a child, this became a target for teasing and cruel comments. Stallone grew up hearing that he would never have good diction, and that with such an odd appearance, he would never make it as an actor. Imagine a young man dreaming of Hollywood, yet carrying a physical trait that, according to everyone around him, would be an insurmountable obstacle. But Stallone never accepted these predictions as fate. He saw his condition not as a weakness, but as part of who he was. Years later, this trait, the same one that nearly destroyed his dreams, would become his trademark. The crooked mouth, the unique speech, and the determined look would become what fans around the world came to love. And from this point, our journey begins. To understand how a physical detail, born from a medical error, went from obstacle to symbol of strength. But to do that, we need to go back and learn about the difficult youth of Sylvester Stallone, which was even harsher than many imagine. Difficult youth and survival. After being born with an injury that would mark his life forever, Sylvester Stallone grew up in a turbulent environment. His parents, Jacqueline and Frank Stallone Sr., had a troubled marriage, full of arguments and instability. When he was still a child, the family split up, and his life became a series of constant moves from one home to another. This instability is tough for any child, but for Stallone, who already felt insecure about his appearance and speech, it was even harder. At school, he was never the popular kid. On the contrary, he was bullied because of his crooked mouth and unique way of speaking. This pushed him to seek refuge in sports and art, but more importantly, it developed a resilience that would later become his secret weapon. In his teenage years, he started dreaming about acting, though everyone around him thought it was a ridiculous idea. In adulthood, before making it to Hollywood, Stallone went through a real marathon of ordinary jobs, just to survive. He worked as a doorman, a sales clerk, and even as a lion cage cleaner at a zoo. Anything that could pay for his next meal. Even then, money was almost never enough. He reached a breaking point when he was evicted, left with no home, no job, and no food, spending 2 weeks sleeping at a New York bus station. In desperation, he made one of the hardest decisions of his life, selling his dog, Butkus, for just $40. The dog was his best friend and constant companion, but hunger was stronger. This story, though sad, has an inspiring ending. When Stallone finally began to earn some money, the very first thing he did was track down the buyer and buy Butkus back. The reunion cost $15,000, a huge amount at the time, but for him, it was worth every cent. And here's the most curious part.
Butkus not only returned home, but also got an important role in the film that would change Stallone's life forever. Rocky. And that's where our story moves to its most decisive moment, the birth of one of cinema's greatest icons. The birth of Rocky. The year was 1975. Stallone was at a point in life where most people would have given up. He had faced countless rejections, failed auditions, and mounting debts. But one night, while watching a boxing match on TV between Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner, something sparked inside him. Wepner was the underdog, but he endured until the 15th round against the heavyweight champion. That display of perseverance ignited a creative fire. Stallone rushed home and began writing. In just 3 days, he had the draft of what would become Rocky. The story of an unknown boxer, full of flaws but with a giant heart, willing to endure no matter how many hits life threw his way. In many ways, it was Stallone's own life disguised as fiction. The script caught the attention of producers who offered as much as $350,000 to buy it, a fortune for someone who could barely afford food. But there was a catch. Stallone wanted to play the lead role. For the studios, this was unthinkable. They wanted a famous actor, not an unknown with a slow, slurred voice and a crooked mouth. Stallone turned down every offer, even while facing serious financial hardship. His determination was so strong that eventually the producers gave in. They agreed to let him star, but with a tiny budget of about $1 million and a quick shooting schedule. To save money, Stallone called in friends and family to appear as extras. Even Butkus, the dog he had fought so hard to get back, was in the film as Rocky's loyal companion. When Rocky premiered in 1976, the impact was immediate. The film not only captured audiences' hearts, but also won the Oscars for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Editing. From an actor written off by everyone, Stallone became a worldwide phenomenon. And most symbolic of all, the same crooked mouth that had been labeled a flaw was now a key part of the character's charm and authenticity. Stallone hadn't just won, he had knocked out every expectation. But the world had yet to see his most explosive side, which would come with a character as legendary as Rocky, the unstoppable John Rambo, the Rambo era, and the 1980s domination. After conquering the world with Rocky, Stallone proved he wasn't a one-role star. In 1982, he took on a character who would become an icon of action cinema, John Rambo, in First Blood. Unlike Rocky Balboa, who won hearts through perseverance and emotion, Rambo was a traumatized Vietnam War veteran, silent, deadly, and efficient. The film was not just about action. It also addressed the difficult reintegration of soldiers into society, a subject rarely tackled at the time. Stallone brought intensity to the role, using his hardened expression and crooked mouth to add depth. Every look conveyed pain and restrained fury. The success was instant. Rambo became synonymous with brute force and tactical genius. The sequels followed quickly. Rambo, First Blood Part 2, 1985, amped up the action with explosions, hand-to-hand combat, and scenes that would define the decade. The character evolved from a misunderstood veteran into a near-mythical hero capable of taking on entire armies. The 1980s were Stallone's peak. He achieved something rare, leading two massive franchises at the same time. On one side, Rocky touched audiences with stories of resilience. On the other, Rambo set screens ablaze with pure adrenaline. Meanwhile, Stallone starred in other hits like Cobra, 1986, and Over the Top, 1987, solidifying his tough guy image. During this period, the crooked mouth was no longer just a detail. It became part of a cinematic identity. In scenes of Rambo shouting in combat or staring down enemies, the expression added intensity and authenticity. It made audiences believe even more in the pain and rage of the character. But like all Hollywood stars, Stallone would eventually face hard times. The 1990s would bring challenges and failures that nearly derailed his career, and once again, he would need to reinvent himself to get back on top. Other successes, setbacks, and the triumphant comeback. After dominating the 1980s, Sylvester Stallone entered the 1990s as one of the biggest action stars on the planet. He still had box office strength and starred in highly anticipated films, like Demolition Man 1993 alongside Wesley Snipes and Cliffhanger 1993, a high-altitude action thriller that showcased his ability to deliver suspense and impressive stunts. However, not everything was a success. This decade also brought productions that failed to deliver the expected returns, such as Stop or My Mom Will Shoot 1992, a comedy action movie that was heavily criticized, and other projects that simply couldn't replicate the cultural impact of Rocky or Rambo. For the press, Stallone's brand was worn out, and his action formula was starting to look outdated. During this period, many critics openly stated that his career was nearing its end. New action stars were emerging, and Hollywood seemed to be shifting toward different trends. But, as he had always done in life, Stallone refused to accept defeat. The major turning point came in 2006 when he decided to revisit his most famous character. Rocky Balboa wasn't just another sequel. It was a deeply personal statement. In the film, an older Rocky decides to step back into the ring to prove he still has something to offer. The reception was emotional. Both old and new fans connected, with its message that it's never too late to fight. Riding that momentum, Stallone brought back his other legendary role. In 2008, he released Rambo, a darker and more brutal installment that showed an older but still relentless protagonist. The audience responded positively, and the actor proved he was far from being a relic of the past. To cap off this resurgence, in 2010 he created The Expendables, bringing together action legends like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, Jason Statham, and Jet Li. The idea was a hit, spawning multiple sequels and reviving the essence of old-school action films. Stallone was back at the top once again, defying every prediction. But what he would do in the years to come would show that, even after decades in the business, there was still plenty of fuel in the tank. Stallone today. After reclaiming his place with Rocky Balboa, Rambo, and The Expendables, Sylvester Stallone proved there is no expiration date for someone with passion for what they do. Even in his 70s, he continued acting, directing, producing, and surprising audiences. In 2015, Stallone delivered one of the most acclaimed performances of his career in Creed. In the film, he reprised the role of Rocky, now as a mentor to young boxer Adonis Creed, played by Michael B. Jordan. His portrayal was so moving and nuanced that it earned Stallone an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, his first Oscar nod since the original Rocky. But he didn't stop there. In 2019, he released Rambo: Last Blood, the fifth chapter in the veteran warrior's saga. While the film divided critics, it proved that audiences still had a strong appetite for his anti-hero. More recently, Stallone ventured into streaming. In 2022, he starred in Tulsa King, playing an aging mob boss trying to rebuild his empire in rural America. The series received praise for his charismatic performance and fresh energy. In 2023, he appeared in Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, reprising his role as Stakar Ogor, and also participated in the reality show The Family Stallone, offering a more personal look into his life with his wife and daughters. Off-screen, Stallone continues to inspire millions of fans. He maintains an intense workout routine, even at his age, and often shares motivational messages about discipline, focus, and perseverance on social media. In the eyes of the public, he's not just a movie star, he's a symbol of resilience and longevity. Today, the crooked mouth that almost ended his dreams early in life is celebrated as a trademark. It's present in every role, every line, and every smile, symbolizing the fight of a man who never allowed others to define his limits. Inspiring closing. The journey of Sylvester Stallone is more than the story of a famous actor. It's living, proof that our greatest limitations can become our greatest strengths. That crooked mouth, the result of an accident at birth, was for years a source of shame, jokes, and disbelief. But he never allowed it to define who he was or how far he could go. On the contrary, Stallone used this trait as an essential part of his characters, turning it into a signature. Whether in Rocky Balboa's defiant stare, John Rambo's hardened expression, or Barney Ross's confident smile, the crooked mouth became a symbol of authenticity. It wasn't just a physical detail, it was a constant reminder that he had beaten the odds. What's most impressive is that even after decades at the top, Stallone continues to reinvent himself. He never settled into the comfort of past success. At over 75 years old, he takes on new roles, new platforms, and new challenges, always keeping his passion for acting alive. His story teaches that the world will always have people telling you that you're not capable, that you don't have what it takes, that you won't make it. But what truly matters is not what they say. It's what you're willing to do to prove them wrong. Stallone didn't just prove it to others. He proved it to himself that it was possible. So, the next time you watch a scene of him running through the streets of Philadelphia, facing enemies in the jungle, or delivering a speech in the ring, remember, every word, every expression, every movement carries the mark of someone who turned pain into strength and limitation into identity. And perhaps this is the most powerful lesson we can take from Sylvester Stallone. No matter how many times life knocks you down, what matters is that you always get back up. And you? What's your fight? What's your crooked mouth that the world says will hold you back? Maybe it's exactly what will make you unique. Leave your answer in the comments, like the video, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this one. Because just like Stallone, you can also be the protagonist of your own journey.